So, hello everybody. Thanks for joining us here on Bring Back the Brass. Bring Back the Brass is a weekly feature that will be presented by one of our 5 Brass Foundations team members. We're the group who are working with and for our young brass players. Whilst these sessions are aimed at our younger players, they will have lots of relevance for everybody. So this is a first for Bring Back the Brass. We're going to have 4 players in one interview, and I really hope they're going to be kind. We've got Jamie Smith, Jonathan Bates, Mike Kavanagh, and Chris Robertson. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Oh.
So, hi. How's things? All right.
Yeah.
Or just okay? A little bit like that.
It's pretty much as good as you can be, I think. Just trying to find ways of keeping busy, trying to keep time flowing, really.
Okay. Well, I've had a good look at your website, and actually, it tells you everything you probably need to know about A4. All your achievements are listed in full Technicolor, like the shirts that you wear on stage. You've won more awards than most of us even knew existed. And in a relatively short period of time, you've become super successful as a non-standard quartet. So here's Mrs. Traditional here, who thinks a quartet from a brass band should be 2 cornets, a horn, and a euphonium, and you're not. So isn't it a little bit bottom heavy? A cornet, a horn, a baritone, and a youth. Tell us about how that came about.
The second cornet would definitely help me out a little bit, to be fair. But it kind of started in college as a bit of a mistake in a way, because we had to do something for one of our exams, and none of us had a chamber group sorted at all, so we just ended up forming. Luckily, at the time, we had Johnny, who was doing composition, so he wrote quite a lot of stuff. So we had quite a lot of music to start with. But since then, it's just kind of how unique we are as a group. I think has just basically been the key, really. They're instruments that people outside the brass band scene don't really hear, and instruments that people wouldn't expect to necessarily sound like they do, and wouldn't necessarily expect to play the music that we do. So I think that's really it. So
yeah. So it was part of your course that you got together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that happens in university, and that's everybody that is part of, a degree course has to do that, do they?
We did. Is it still the same? Do you know, Mike?
I think it's still the same, yeah. I mean, I think at the RNCM particularly, especially in your first year, chamber music is compulsory, which is great because, I mean, as we've been finding through lockdown and seeing loads of videos, small group playing has come back into the focus. It's people are starting to realise the value of it. So it's a really great initiative, and I can completely understand why we did it. But as Jamie mentioned, we would just be your typical brass banders and kind of left it last minute, and we didn't have one. So that's kind of how instrumentation came. And then, as a result, we thought, well, we sound all right, so let's just try and enter a couple of competitions at the college, and ended up winning both the Brass Chamber Music Prize and then actually the overall Ensemble of the Year award against like masters level string trios and piano duets and stuff. So it was all a bit of a happy accident, really, which has gone really well for us since then.
Yeah, and now you're associate members. What does that mean? What have you got to do for that?
I mean, I'll kind of fill in here. So in terms of the associate level, I mean, we've been honorary associate artists with the college before, which has kind of meant we've had access to recording space. We've worked with a lot of their staff. I know a number of us have also been working on the exam panels for their technical exams earlier on this calendar year. So we've been quite integrated with the college on both the academic side and the performance side. It's just a way of keeping ties. I mean, we're incredibly grateful for the support we had and the opportunity the RNCM gave us and how they promoted us. So it's basically our way of making a slightly more official partnership that we can help give things back, both to their chamber groups and indeed the various instrumentalists on our chosen instruments.
Brilliant. So A4 carried on after you all left the Northern. Did you foresee that happening, or was that just an accident, like when you first got together?
Well, yeah, I guess at first we wouldn't have we definitely wouldn't have seen the ensemble to have the career it's had. But when we were coming towards the end of our 4th year of study, we knew we were all going to get our individual undergraduate degrees, and an opportunity came up to do a postgraduate course, a diploma for a year, which we called the International Artist Diploma, and usually that's for soloists and usually people not from the UK that have come over to study at the college. But it was offered to us, and well, we applied for it, and I think we were one of the first groups to be to do the International Artist Diploma course. So that really set us up just to do a full year specialising in doing chamber music as a job and as a role to supplement obviously our solo stuff and our brass band stuff as well.
Quite unique, really.
Yeah.
To have got that far as a quartet and as a brass band quartet, I would think it's unheard of, actually. The route for all of you was the route for all of you has been youth bands, contesting bands, university, postgraduate study, and then what? What fills your days now?
Guess we all do teaching now, and performing when that was a thing, concerts. But yeah, now I guess for all four of us, it's been mostly teaching this year through lockdown. We were lucky enough to get away to Switzerland in October and do a week-long tour of concerts there. So we feel very lucky that we're one of the few individuals and groups that have actually been able to perform live music in the last year, which was really amazing, considering we've still not been back on stage yet. But
and do you all work for music hubs, or are you private? What kind of tuition are you doing?
So I just do online, which I've been doing for just over 2 years. So it's all private, and I've never met any of them, but I think the others are all in schools. And
yeah.
Can I check that you can hear me now?
Yeah, that's it.
I can hear you now.
Finally, yeah. So I work for a music service 1 day a week, and then otherwise it's all sort of self-employed, like private stuff through schools. But I think we're all pretty keen on keeping it to sort of half a week so that we can allow days for the quartet to sort of start the week. Maybe Monday, Tuesday, we tend to do leave them for quartet, whether that's rehearsals or recordings, or we do quite a lot of schools concerts. We're involved with 2 really good charities, Live Music Now and Music in Hospitals and Care. So we do a lot of work in special educational needs schools and also care homes. But then also just sort of standard music service hubs as well. So it's a nice mix of work that we kind of try and put on weekends and the first half of the week. Yeah,
and schools are going to be crying out for that kind of thing. Well, from now really, it started, hasn't it? I know I'm a teacher, so I've started to look for the next year's events, next year's activities. So. Yes, I can imagine your diaries are going to be quite full. Can you tell me a little bit about how you got into the music in hospitals and care? Because that really stood out for me from your website, that was something that I don't think I've seen a brass group from brass band heritage go and do.
Yeah, so that actually came through in your 3rd year at the RNCM. You have to do a placement. Not as a quartet, but individually you have to do a placement as part of your course. And my placement was with Music in Hospitals and Care. So I spent probably about 6 months viewing different concerts and working with them, getting to know the charity, and thought it was great. And then sort of when we graduated, when we also became Live Music Now musicians, which is very similar. I just contacted them because Music in Hospitals and Care tends to just have soloists, duos and trios. But I just thought we'd get in touch to see, and they sort of made an exception for us, and it's gone down really well. So that's how the connection came. It's from a placement I did at college.
Yeah. And there's a quote on the site, isn't there, about from when Ofsted were in? Is that right? Is that in a special school?
Yeah, that was what
about how moving that was. Yeah, it's something special, isn't it, when you get something like that?
Yeah, I think I was lucky for the school that we were in on the same day as Ofsted.
Yeah.
I mean, it just gives you a completely different perspective of what we do as musicians. I mean, I remember we did a small concert tour around schools in Yorkshire, and we have a set we kind of stick to. We found a set of pieces which work and kind of activities which work. So we're kind of just going through the mill of just doing what we do in most schools. And there was one example at the end of one of the sessions where a load of staff kind of ran in with cameras and video recorders and stuff, and we just thought, well, what's happening here? We're kind of used to seeing these kind of responses in a lot of schools. And, one of the kids had actually kind of moved for the first time in 6 months. Actually being able to show any kind of bodily movement, which was an enormous thing, which a lot of us would just kind of take for granted. But just hearing that kind of pulse and that rhythm with what we were producing, the vibrations when we feel the instruments, obviously triggered something quite significant there. So it's an incredibly rewarding and very, very different aspect to what we do.
Yeah, that's amazing. There are all sorts of things, aren't there, that you see that pop up on YouTube and what have you, but when you actually experience it yourself, that must be something else. So is this the kind of work you see doing? I mean, you'll get things in the diary, I'm sure, over the next year, but well into the future, or do you have a strategic plan to do other things, or are you winging it?
I'd probably say we just want to do both. I mean, we've been really, really happy getting that mix. Like Mike said, we tried to keep kind of weeks half and half, so we have time to do other things. I mean, we probably wouldn't want to say we're going to do one constantly, because we'd not get tired of it, but we'd become kind of pigeonholed in one area of music making, whereas we want to try and do all sorts. We want to be concert performers, we want to be soloists, we want to be educators, and we also want to do this outreach work in the special needs and care sector. So I don't think we want to particularly change the balance. I mean, I'm probably speaking on behalf of the group on that instance, but I think the balance we have between the outreach and the actual performance is one we enjoy, and we get equal amounts from doing both.
So tell us about your composition competition. It's happened at the same time each year, hasn't it? The last 3 or 4 years. It's not happened this year. Is that going to happen again?
We hope so. Yeah, I mean, we've been quite busily working behind the scenes on a new website and the kind of publishing company to go with it. So we've had a lot on the plate in terms of that, and I think now there's a little bit more time. People were obviously trying to find different jobs and trying to find ways to keep them busy and keep income going. And I think if we'd have launched the competition too early, it would have just got lost, because people would understandably have far more pressing things to kind of focus on. But it's certainly now we've got the website sorted, which is all uploaded, and the publishing site all underway. It's now something we want to go, because we're looking at how the world's adapted in the last year. There's been a lot of attention brought to underrepresented groups in music and classical music in particular, and we want to be at the forefront of groups commissioning and performing music by these groups, as well as people in education sectors and experienced composers around the world. So we're very, very passionate about that. I mean, you mentioned right at the start of the chat, it's a very unusual and unique combination of instruments. Well, that means there's no existing music. So every single piece of music we've had has had to be arranged by ourselves or composed within the group, or asking elsewhere to write for us. So, I mean, in total, we're now over 200 pieces. We've been together since 2013, so around seven or 8 years, and we've generated over 200 pieces in the repertoire, which we're incredibly proud of, but we want to keep it going. We don't want to just get complacent. We want to keep that momentum.
Yeah, good stuff. You seem to have done a lot of traveling. You said you went to Switzerland, was it, in October? Where's the best place you've played?
I love Lithuania. We've been there twice now, and because we did this, it's called Trache Fanfare Week, and it was our first ever international engagement, and I think, was that 2015? And then we got invited back a couple of years ago as part of a bigger tour, and it's just such a nice country, and it's not crowded, it's not you can do city things in the capital and the bigger towns, but also it's just cute and historic and lakes and sun, and it's just a really nice place to play. Nothing special kind of venue wise, but I just love, it's just feels good to be there and play there. Yeah.
What about you, Jamie? Where's your favourite?
I think I love the whole kind of aspect of when you're abroad and you do them kind of European chamber concerts outdoors. I just think there's something really nice about them. I just think, obviously acoustically there's not, but just kind of the whole atmosphere, and people go there and bring drinks and food and stuff, and it's really nice. And we did one in the very south of Switzerland a couple of years ago, and there was this old church, and we're in front of it, and there was a courtyard, and it was just really nice. So that's something that obviously we can't do that much in this country because the weather's not so great.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's just really nice. That's obviously really common. So I'd say that, yeah. I'd say that.
Great stuff. So have you got a lot in the diary in terms of, you know, when lockdown lifts, in terms of travel? What's coming up for you?
Yeah, we've luckily got quite a lot in the diary, and it's just as a result of the pandemic. Basically, most of the 2020 schedule has moved to later on this year and beyond. So because of the current sort of roadmap out, concert promoters are starting to feel a bit more confident in making bookings, because we've found that concerts have been cancelled and rescheduled at least 2 times. Some promoters have been quite hesitant to make a third booking and then have to cancel it again, whereas now we're starting to find that the diary is filling up, which is really good. I think everyone's ready to hear some live music and be part of some live music. So it's nice that different bookings are coming back in. In terms of international bookings, that's going to be a bit further down the line until we can see what's safe. Quite a lot of countries we've found, like we've got a concert booking in Switzerland, but they're just going to use Swiss musicians for now until they know it's safe for us, you know, international musicians to travel. So we feel like there is starting to be a light at the end of the tunnel for international concerts, but we just can't wait to get back to the stage wherever it is, to be honest.
Yeah, I think everybody's in the same boat, aren't they? Just want to get out and toot. So how's practice been in lockdown? Has it been hard to get motivated, or are you just such professionals that it's just part of your psyche?
On and off.
On and off.
Yeah. It's hard without any kind of motivation to do it. There's always self-motivation, but without a project to do, or without a gig or a solo to do. We've all been doing little recordings as part of a kind of collaboration videos and multi-track things, but nothing major. So I think, Johnny, you did a recital, so obviously you will have had to play loads.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a couple of recitals to work towards, but you know, that's only kind of one body of work for about a month. I mean, it's totally right what you say about as musicians in general, we work towards things. We work towards a concert. We work towards a competition. So when that's been taken out, it is difficult. But I mean, Chris touched on projects, and I think the key for keeping in practice has been having a project. You have to create your own. You know, it's forced us as a movement out of a comfort zone and waiting for everyone else to give us projects to work towards. You know, if we want to stay in practice and want to be in the best form we can, we've got to create our own, which I think a lot of bands have been doing, a lot of soloists have been doing. But I think the main thing is you can't force yourself to do it, because then you're less likely to do it. You know, you've got to be working towards a project you enjoy doing, because if you sit there, you know, when at the early lockdown or the middle of it and there's no light at the end of the tunnel, you're thinking, I'm not actually enjoying what I'm doing, I'm forcing myself to practice, then you're probably less likely to get back in at the end of it. You're probably going to look for other things you enjoy doing more. So actually, if to be honest, if you're having a month or so off in the middle of lockdown or whatever, it's not the end of the world. It's not a big deal. I certainly have, because I'd rather have a month off and actually start getting frustrated because I'm doing stuff I don't actually want to do. So I think now, as you mentioned there, Sheila, there is light at the end of the tunnel. You know, people are going to start doing more projects they're actually enjoying. It gives them an end goal. It gives them some focus to their practice. So I think now's the time. I mean, that's what these series are great for. Now's the time to get the motivation back and get the instrument out of the case. I mean, the first thing I do, and I can see James doing because it's in his screen, is my instrument's never in the case. You know, it just sits there. That's all it does. Some days I don't pick it up, but I'm a lot more likely to pick it up if it's not in a case at the side of an awkward place to get out. If it's just there, I might think, I've got 10 minutes. Oh, let's see what I sound like today and do a bit of practice. And the more you do that, the more you find you enjoy it, and the motivation comes back to actually start practicing full time. So I think managing the time scale is going to be important, but I'd say just doing things you enjoy for the time being.
Absolutely. Anything's better than nothing, isn't it? We're hoping that lots of young people are going to be watching this, and you're a bit of a role model for what can be achieved in banding. If you had to pin down one thing that encapsulates your learning as you went through university and all on, you know, youth bands, anything at all? Just one thing. What do you think was the biggest single musical lesson? Ooh, hard question.
I'd say listen.
I'll jump in first because I think I'll go to Chris.
Right, I was going to say just listen to as much as you can. Listen to loads of bands, but obviously non-band. Listen to vocal and opera and wind band, literally everything you can possibly do, and then copy their styles, steal it.
Brilliant.
I mean, and I was going to say, just don't be told you can't do something. I mean, look at us as a group. You know, we're not a normal brass quartet. We're brass band players in a not normal formation, and you know, if you'd have said to us when we started playing on brass band instruments, you're going to be playing in Wigmore Hall and doing all these incredible chamber music festivals, orchestrally, classical music, you know, you wouldn't have believed them. But don't let anyone say just because you're, for example, a baritone player, you can't play in a big band, or, you know, a trombone player, you can't play a piece in a recital accompanied by a string quartet. You know, just don't limit yourself to what's like already out there. Create your own opportunities.
Great answer. I like that.
That's totally seconded by me, Johnny, I must admit, because I've heard people start university and not be able to play any jazz whatsoever and then finish and be fantastic. And I've heard people, and there's probably 4 of them on this screen right now, who weren't even that sure what chamber music was when they started university, and then they finished it and it's a job, you know. So just, if you go into music college, if you go into your youth bands, if you go into schools, whatever, the people there are there for a reason. So learn, listen to them, and push yourself to do what you want to do. Like Johnny said, don't be told that you can't do something, and also don't hold yourself back because you're afraid or you're scared to do something. You know, you've got to do it. You've got to do what you enjoy. So yeah, totally.
Right. Have you got anything to add, Mike?
This is more for sort of for youth band players. Is get your mates involved. You're more likely to carry on if you've got all your mates involved. I'm sure all the guys are the same, but when we were in our youth bands and music service bands, it's not just a case of turning up once a week to play. You get to go on all these fun tours and things like that. And what better way after lockdown if people are looking for new things to do, bring your mate along and get involved.
Yeah, absolutely. And parents, get your parents involved. They probably need something to do. If you can say, is there anything musically that you wouldn't have done over your career so far? Any regrets? Anything that was really, you know, cringeable? Go on, share.
I'd say that not something that I shouldn't have done, but I wish I'd learned to play the piano, because that would have helped me throughout my journey, but also it'd be handy now. So yeah, that's always been something I wish I could do. But like Jamie said, I could just, you know, why not now? Could start now.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm holding myself back, making excuses. But yeah, I wish I had that from when I was younger.
There'll be somebody out there who can give you some online lessons there, Chris, I'm sure.
1-for-1.
I think maybe the only regret I would have is that I kind of left youth banding before I had to. I played in 2 great youth bands at the time, Elland and Sellers youth bands, and I kind of started in senior banding quite young, and you know, it was getting quite busy. I was in a very lucky position playing for a lot of really, really good bands at the time, but I kind of thought it's getting too busy and I left those youth bands. So like Mike was saying about getting your mates involved, you know, I kind of missed out on 2 years of the social life of banding, because banding can be 2 different things. It can be very different walks of life. It can be a social aspect or it can be a competitive aspect. It can be both, which is great, but I kind of lost out on 2 years of the kind of fun family social aspect and just went down the twice a week, really competitive, everything has to be brilliant, and you kind of just lose a little bit of enjoyment side of what you make. So, you know, I'd probably say to any of the young people watching this, even if you do, and hopefully you do get the opportunities to play in really, really high level senior bands before you get too old to play in the youth bands, just stick out with the youth bands, because you'll help also inspire the next generation in those youth bands. You'll become ambassadors for the band, but also you'll actually kind of get that social interaction, which you might not necessarily get if you go into a senior band and there's not people of a similar age to you.
Great. Anything to add, Jamie?
It's kind of, I totally agree with what Johnny said about youth bands, and I totally agree, because we we played in a youth band together, didn't we, Johnny, for a good little while? Yeah. And that is kind of the fun part. I guess that's kind of a regret of mine, is that of all my school friends when I was at school, I don't really talk to any of them now, because I didn't have that thing in common. And actually, my best friends now are people who are involved in the brass band movement, and it's kind of it's important for people who are learning or are learning on their own or are learning individually that they get involved in bands and ensembles, because if they didn't, their regret in years to come would be that they didn't meet people when they were this age. The guys are going to laugh at me now so much, but I absolutely love jazz music. I love it, and I'm so bad at it. And these three guys know how bad I am at it, and I wish I'd have learned it, and I wish I'd have done it. And I know I'm being really hypocritical because I've just said that it's not too late to start and all this stuff, but I just really wish I'd have played it. And I mean, at uni there were people who started at university and were awful, and then I remember hearing them in fourth year and they were amazing. So if you practice, stuff really doesn't take that long. It really doesn't. So that's kind of my only thing, really. But
Mike, anything? Pearls of wisdom we're after.
Pearls of wisdom?
Yeah, please.
I just thought of a regret as well, and now you sprung another question. Pearls of wisdom.
Well, you can do regrets if you like.
Well, mine was not from a quartet perspective. It kind of touches what we said earlier on not setting a bar and letting, don't limit ourselves. It's not a regret of anything we've done so far, but more we're currently applying for different schemes. Like we don't know where we could go. And we're not going to limit ourselves at that. So I guess one regret would be not applying for even more things, even though from the outside world it might look like we've won all sorts of awards and been involved in lots of different schemes. We're sort of always looking for new things to do, and I think that's should go the same for whatever level you're playing at. Is always looking for new things, and don't be scared to not follow someone else's path, because we're sort of making our own, and that should be the same for everyone.
Yeah, great stuff. Okay, last question. This is going to be the last one. As we come out of restrictions, there's potential for banding to be different, for people to have different attitudes towards it. What aspects of banding do we keep, and what aspects of banding do we get rid of?
I think there's a lot of change, which is probably hopefully going to be for better, actually. I've spoken to this a lot to people. I think we're going to see bands embrace technology more, and I think that needs to happen. Social media presence and promoting yourself online is going to become far bigger. I'd like to think when we get back, concert programs are going to be slightly more adventurous, because whilst the players will still be there who want to play the same programs we've been hearing on the same bandstands for the last 40 years, we need to encourage a new generation. I mean, as you suggested there, there's going to be people who are potentially going to think, I've got other things I want to do, probably in the older generation, or people who've discovered family time is they want to take up more time with the families and stuff. So we need to make sure we put in place the foundations to encourage younger players. I've seen a band who I'm very pleased to have a connection with, Wantage Silver down in Oxfordshire, who've just put onto their committee two members of a youth band, the senior band, because they want to see, okay, what do the young generation want? What's going to keep them engaged? And we need to do that, because I think for too long, too many bands I've seen they've had the kind of old guard on the committee who've been there for like 30 years and they make all the decisions, but it's only going to be based on real life experience. What we need to do is actually embrace the views of the younger generation and see what they want their movement to be in the next 10 years and act on that. So that's certainly one thing I'd like to see change and adapt to. I don't know what the others think about that.
I think that's fair. I think another thing that I would add is that there's only what, maybe 4 bands that max that will win major competitions in a year, and I think it's important that people know that that's kind of not the pinnacle, right? People only do something because they enjoy it. The most important thing that we should remember is enjoying it, and if that's playing with your youth band, that's totally what you should do. If that's playing at a band where you go to it and you cannot wait to go to that rehearsal every week, whatever it may be, it's totally fine. There's too much of a sportsmanship involved, particularly kind of at the minute, and it's it's enjoyment. We only do it because we enjoy it. I think I speak on behalf of all 4 guys on the screen, which was if we all absolutely hated playing in a band, we wouldn't do it, whatever the band was. So whatever that is, whatever you want to do, whatever your aims are, you need to make sure you enjoy it. That's just it. There's no expectation at all. It's only what you enjoy. That's all I'd say.
Thank you. Anything to add, Chris?
Well, for myself, I'm just thinking about when we do go back to the band, and we've been seeing loads of stuff about going back to contests and major contests and things like that. But for me, that's not what I've been missing. And that, I don't know if the public have been, if we come out of lockdown to get brass bands back on the scene, I don't think people are waiting for, one test piece to be played 18 times in the same day. I think if you're a band, and it doesn't matter if you get a full band or a small group or 10 piece or whatever, we should just get out and play to people, because it's going to get warm, summer's coming, and people haven't heard live music. If we're allowed to go outside and just play, my band could go out in their local town and just have a small group and say, right, we are your local band, and whether that's a 4th section band or a top section band, we just want to give people music. They've not been able to hear it for so long. We've been doing all these recording videos where we're not even in the same country, never mind area or band room. So I think just going out and playing simple tunes, arrangements, summer bandstands, that's what I'd love to do right now, less so than a contest. And the sport part of music is so Victorian sometimes, but obviously it's nice to contest and nice to win if you get to be in that position, but it's just nice to go on stage, whether you're getting applauded or not, just playing to people sat having an ice cream. That would be great.
Yeah. I think everybody's looking forward to that, aren't they? Mike, you might get the last word here. Anything to tell us there, Mike?
Oh, I thought you were going to ask a new question when you.
No.
Okay.
I wouldn't speak.
Yeah, no, I'd quite like to see banding go into some more collaborations, to take our instruments and our music to new audiences. A bit like what we're doing with the quartet, playing in different halls, sort of Wigmore Hall, various different halls. They will have never heard a baritone or a tenor horn before, or a euphonium, the chances are. So it's I'd like to see banding do more of that kind of thing. I know there's been sort of little dabbles in it, like I think Tredegar have done a ballet thing before, and only little bits. But I don't see why banding should limit itself and put a cap on the sort of the 12-month diary we currently had. I feel like coming out of lockdown is a great chance for banding to sort of revamp the calendar. And, if there was a couple of months in the year where you go off and you collaborate with a string orchestra or things like that, there are plenty of players in the orchestral world and the professional music world that have come through banding that would love to see, bands involved with their current ensemble, whether that's a symphony orchestra or whether that's, a conductor or something. I'd quite like to see more of that kind of thing to take our movement to new audiences. That's what I'd say. Yeah,
great. I've got to say those answers have been brilliant at the end. My head started thinking already, what happens next. Yeah, great answers. Thank you so much. Folks, that was our last question for the A4 Brass Quartet. Just remains for me to say thank you to Jamie, to Johnny, to Mike, and to Chris, and to wish you best of luck in the next 12 months. I think we'll see lots of A4 on our social media, on our screens, and I'm looking forward to it. So I wish you all the very best, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.